and then the Afghan government fell. And my former teammates called and said, dude, you got a nonprofit, right? And I said, yeah, but it's kind of sitting there. And they said, could you stand it up? And I said, yeah. And that day we stood up a website and started working in the Afghan mission. We're currently in development of a technology for suicide prevention.
All right, everyone, thanks so much for tuning in to another episode of Beyond the Uniforms. And today we have Matt, and he is with Outer Circle Foundation. And I thought I would give him an opportunity to come and talk a little bit about his organization and how he supports veterans and law enforcement too. Is that correct?
Yeah, both.
Okay, great. I was both. I don't know if I mentioned that. Air Force, and then I worked for Dallas for a while. So this is the kind of area that's kind of near and dear to my heart, because what you're doing is it's definitely needed for sure. And I think it's one of those areas where, well, you've been in this for a while, a lot of people don't like to talk about this. They don't like to admit these issues, especially cops. And I guess it goes for veterans as well. Anyway, so welcome to the show. Thank you so much for taking some time out of the day. I appreciate you.
Yeah, thanks.
All right. So just go ahead, share a little bit about yourself, your organization, a little bit of backstory, time in, and everything like that.
Yeah. So, I come from a military family. My dad was actually killed in Vietnam when I was 2 months old. So wow. I know very little from my dad's side of the house. My stepdad was a pilot for TWA, so we kind of moved around a little bit. Grew up. My real dad's family was from Marshall, North Carolina. Just tobacco farmers, kind of soil of the earth down there, and everybody just kind of takes care of everybody. But after high school, I enlisted in the Air Force. My dad was in the Army. And I went out and I talked to all of the services and just wanted to explore options, and decided on the Air Force. I was a combat controller. And a lot of people don't know combat control. I think there were about 230 of us when I was in. I went in the military in 85. And spent about 10 years before I was medically retired. And those that don't know a combat controller, we are air traffic controllers, but we're fully special operations. So we're Halo and Scuba and static line and demolitions and weapons and everything else. But the beauty of a combat controller is the ability to talk to anything that moves, shoots, or flies. And, even naval gunfire, artillery, close air support, whatever it is. And then we can create drop zones, landing zones, control traffic and do a variety of things from there. I was medically retired I was medically retired in 95 and didn't know what I was going to do. It was very quick from the putting in package to standing outside the gate with my bags, and went back to school and decided to be, I was a cop as well, and was a cop for a long time, retired as a chief of police, and then went into the security world. And both my wife and I are security professionals after, doing what we did. So, when we looked at starting a nonprofit, we really wanted to do something that was going to give back and really impact those that, protect and serve and do everything to, protect us. And we started the nonprofit Outer Circle. And it kind of sat for a little bit, and then the Afghan government fell. And my former teammates called and said, dude, you got a nonprofit, right? And I said, yeah, but it's kind of sitting there. And they said, could you stand it up? And I said, yeah. And that day we stood up a website and started working in the Afghan mission. And one family turned into 5, turned into 100, turned into 1,000. And we worked that for a little over 2 years. And then it just took hold. And then now we're back to our U.S. veterans and first responders, and we can get into more about that afterwards. But it's just been near and dear to our hearts, and we want to do everything we can to give back to those that serve.
No, that's really awesome, and there's definitely not enough of that to go around. You being obviously in both types of government capacity, you can speak to that clearly.
Yeah.
So I can share a little bit about the start, and basically that's going to be your Outer Circle Foundation, right? Is what you started, is what you're leading into.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So we started it with the goal of our U.S. side. And then, like I said, the Afghan government fell. And, we worked with, oh Lord, there were probably 10 or 15, 20 different other nonprofits. And I mean, we were just sharing resources and doing everything we could to, help our Afghan Special Forces allies get out. And, one of our pride and joys is we worked a little over 2 years to get the former command sergeant major of the elite Afghan Special Forces out. And his name is Nassar Wantandost. And Nassar, we ended up separating Nassar and his family. And he didn't see his wife and kids for a little over 3 years. And, they were separated. Nassar still has a big bounty on his head from the Taliban. He's been fighting the Taliban since he was 8 years old. It's just done all kinds of different things. And we were able to get him here. He arrived in Atlanta on April 26th of 23. We picked him up at the airport. He lived with Buff and I for about 9 months. 3 months later, we got his wife and kids here, and they moved in with us. And he has a job, and he's working, and he's loving life. And so he's doing a lot of different things. And then in 23, we shifted back to the U.S. Our U.S. focus, and we're really focused now on PTSD awareness, suicide prevention, and transition help. And we talk a lot about alternative treatments for PTSD. And then we have we're currently in development of a technology for suicide prevention for law enforcement. And then we help with soft skills for transition. And we can talk about these individually or however you want to do it, but we can dive into them however you want to do it.
Yeah, for sure. I would like to actually, well, there's a couple things. What the kind you've already touched on it a little bit, but I was going to ask you like some of the highlights of some of the things that you may have done, like some of the success projects or outcomes that you've done. But that one right there, I think you just talked about the Afghan Special Forces guy. I think that one's pretty significant. I mean, after I don't know, 3 years without senior, man, that is really awesome. And you guys have done some amazing work with that. Congratulations on that. I can't imagine. I don't know. That would be so tough. I mean, I never was married in the military, and so I never got to go through that process of being deployed away from my family. But being 3 years away, I just, oh man.
Yeah, and his baby was 9 months old when they separated. So she was 3 when almost 4 when he first saw her, and it was just crazy. And
man, that like gives me goosebumps because I mean, obviously you said he had a few kids, but even every child is special during. I mean, of course, every child is special as long as you have children. Ours, she's 8 and she's one of our miracle. She's our only miracle child, and just every day and every moment with them is precious. And I can't imagine spending so much time away from those youthful years. Or like those are the best years, like when they're growing up and they're starting to explore. Oh man, anyway, I don't want to go down a rabbit hole on that. But, you mentioned you're working on the technology. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So, when you think about, so we work very closely with Brian Moore over at the Ames Center. Ames is a part of KSU, Kennesaw State University here in Kennesaw, Georgia. We're just outside of Atlanta in Dallas, Georgia. And, Brian is one of the leading researchers in PTSD and law enforcement, does a ton of research into different things. And, one of the aspects of, law enforcement is loneliness. And, loneliness being there's no one to talk to, right? And there's a couple of different things that we're driving on the law enforcement side. One is a lot of states out there have PTSD as a mental illness, not a workplace injury. And, you didn't come in with a mental illness. You were screened and viewed and put up one side and down the other, and you didn't have this coming in. And, it was acquired by the functions of the job, right? Whatever it was, crimes against children, homicide, whatever it was, whatever your function was that caused you to, and even just a patrol cop with car accidents and shootings and everything else that you're seeing out there. I had a conversation with one of our local chief deputies yesterday, and he was like, I think every single cop out there has some form of PTSD or another. And he goes, it's so funny because, and he goes, funny and not funny, but he goes, just a smell or a sound or something will take me right back to something that happened at some place, date, or time at some location, right? So, when you think about that, right, and you have that capacity, very few cops that I know are going to deal with EAP. They're not going to talk to their department. They're not going to raise their hand. They're just not going to be part of that. And they're not going to talk to their fellow people within their department because, one, they don't want that stigma. It was like me when I was back on the teams, right? You didn't want to be viewed as that wink link. And, right. So there's a variety of different things. So, the technology could be the ability of reaching out and getting somebody who's not close to you, but in the same ilk, in the same capacity as where, you're same, whether you're law enforcement or a fireman or EMS or something else, but having the ability to reach out and connect with, call it a battle buddy, call it something, right? And be able to talk to that person in the capacity of, hey, I'm dealing with this, and I just don't have anybody else to talk to, right? So we're working through some kinks on some things, and obviously funding is a huge issue. So, working through issues with being on the nonprofit side, but raising money and, finding those donors out there that really want to help support and be part of the effort of doing some of these things. But, I've talked to a bunch of different psychologists and psychiatrists and Brian and a bunch of different things. And they're like, man, this was really work. We just have to figure out, some of the pieces and parts of it. But it's coming. It's just going to take us a little bit of time to get there.
Yeah, no, sure. That's awesome. I think there's always, it's crazy. I'd never heard it reframed that way. Was, it's a mental, what did you say? It was a mental illness, right?
Yeah, not a workplace injury.
It's not as opposed to a workplace injury. I never even thought about it like that.
Yeah.
That's a whole new reframe. And I think that would really help a lot of people because, like you just mentioned, a lot of people don't want to reach out for help because pride might not be the right word, but like you said, it's because they don't want to be the wink link. They, especially in law enforcement or even on the combat zone, like people don't want to be seen as the one that can't be trusted because they have something going on upstairs and they don't want to feel like maybe relied upon by their coworkers or their peers when stuff hits the fan, or there's a lot of other issues, of course, in that. And
you got to think about it, right? I mean, just from a military perspective, right? You have, me as a combat controller, I don't know, they spent $1.5 million training me, over the course of 18 months or so with all the schools and all the different knowledge and all the different stuff that comes in. And as the war on terror comes in and the guys are going out and they're doing, all of the stuff that they're doing and, everything that is taking place around the world and the stressors and the life and everything that's going on and the time away from home and everything. And, all of those aspects are coming into play. It's not like you can say, all right, dude, so you got a little bit of a problem. We're just going to kind of throw you away and just fill you in with somebody else. It doesn't work like that, right? So the military's done a really good job of figuring out, all right, yeah, we know our guys are going to deal with stuff. How do we help them kind of overcome that and then get back into the game so they can go back out and do those things that they were trained to do and that want to do, right? They want to be able to continue to do those things. And that's where we got to figure out from on the law enforcement side, because like I said, you did not come in with this. This is a byproduct of the job in which you are doing in that capacity. It's no different than if you were chasing a bad guy and broke your leg. this is a byproduct of what you're doing as that job function, right? Is a workplace injury and should be treated as such.
Yeah, and that's a really good point, because I mean, when I was with our agency, when I worked for a while, like, and there's a lot of, nothing is perfect, but one of the biggest things is like even small things like doing like work comp, for small injuries or whatever it might be. Like that is something that is another, because most of the time the policies are in place to where you have a legit issue or concern or problem or injury, whatever it might be, and you're denied in work comp. So then there's that obstacle to overcome that as well. So not only are you dealing with all this psychological stuff, and then being, labeled by your peers, and then you're having it, so it's a whole process. And I'm hoping that you guys can come through that and figure out a solution and really get this off the ground, because this is going to be a really amazing service that you can provide to law enforcement and military. To circle back on what you were talking about, looking for the donors and the sponsors and all that stuff, the collaborations and the partnerships that you get through, not just with your current organization, but with the one that you're currently building. What are you guys looking for as far as partnerships and collaborations?
We on our website, we have a bunch of different, we have Dr. Lynch that's up in Annapolis, and he runs he conducts a procedure called the stellate ganglion block. And that's an alternative treatment for PTSD. And when you think about PTSD, right, and everybody goes to, oh man, it's a war, it's a car wreck, it's a plane crash, it's this. It could be anything, man. It could be sexual trauma, it could be domestic violence, it could be any number of different things, right? Trauma's trauma. And Doc does a bunch of different things. And the stellate ganglion block, you have two bundles of nerves in both sides of your neck. There's two on the right and two on the left. And that they're called the ganglion bundles of nerves. And those bundles of nerves connect your sympathetic and your autonomous nervous system. And those, and when you connect those, that creates your fight or flight system. And your fight or flight system for PTSD is in absolute overdrive, right? You're in a chaotic mess. And, for me, it was massive nightmares. And my nightmares were, very violent, kicking and struggling and fighting and all kinds of stuff. My fuse was very, very short, not really with people, but it was with like things. Like I couldn't tie my shoes fast enough, or I got something out of the refrigerator and something fell down and I would just get really mad at that, or, just like little things like that. Right. Just some of those things. And I would introvert into myself and just not want to deal with people and not want to deal with different things, and really just kind of collapse inside myself. The ganglion block, you come up and he maps your anatomy, and then he ingests an anesthetic, just like you're going to a dentist and you're getting a Novocaine, right? So it's just an anesthetic into those bundles of nerves. Before the first shot was out of my neck, he asked me, he goes, Matt, how do you feel? And I looked at him and I was like, Doc, this is the craziest thing in the world. And I said, I'm a 10-year-old boy. It's a beautiful summer day. There's not a cloud in the sky. I'm sitting on a wooden dock. I'm looking at a crystal clear, beautiful lake. I have overalls on and no shirt. My feet are dangling because they can't reach the water, and I got a fishing pole next to me. That's not a memory. I didn't read it in a book. I have no idea. We had a conversation afterwards, and he's like, your mind goes back to the most relaxing, peaceful place that you can when we do this kind of reset. And, then he did the other one, and I went home that night. My wife was with me. And when I say I wasn't sleeping, like I was sleeping 30 minutes or 45 minutes, but I would go days without sleeping. And I got home that night and I slept 14 hours. She thought I died. And, she would like lay her hand on my chest, or she would, make sure that I was breathing or whatever. And this is not a fix, right? There is no cure for PTSD, but it helps you kind of reset some of those symptoms. So then you can get back to the hard work of therapy and some of the other things that go on, right? So you can really focus on getting help there. So this is one of the treatments that we talk about with some of those guys. Cause when you think about all the medicine and all of the other stuff out there, A cop can't really do that. A cop can get the ganglion block and be right back on duty the next day, because there's no mind altering anything. It's just like going and getting, like I said, like your tooth filled or something, right? There's nothing. Yeah. So, but we look for partners there that have like-minded mission, whether they're mental health, whether they're, somebody we can rely on homelessness. From a donor capacity, somebody that wants to get behind us and help with, where we're going from a programmatic standpoint and what we're doing from a mission standpoint. We have a golf outing every year. We have one coming up in October. May 2nd, we're having a black tie gala here in Dallas, and we're going to bring a bunch of donors together and do a bunch of different things from that regard. But we really look for those other nonprofits that can rely on us, and that we don't have the skills that they do. They don't have the skills that we do, but we can leverage each other, because people need a variety of skill sets, and you need those really good vetted partners to be able to leverage when somebody comes to you in that time of need. And you can't be looking for somebody that, oh man, I need this. You need those trusted partners to have, right at the tip of your fingers.
Yeah, for sure. Man, that's crazy. I didn't even know something like that existed, man.
Yeah.
If you guys could spread that around the country, like, man, all the miracles and stuff that you guys could do. Wow. I'm really looking forward to that too.
Yeah.
I guess I kind of led into my next question is, like, how can people support your organization or reach out to you? But you kind of touched on that a little bit. Is there anything else that you wanted to add to that as far as supporting organization or?
Yeah, just our website, outercirclefoundation.org.
Okay.
And you can go there, and outercirclefoundation.org/golf 2024. That's registration for our golf outing. We have sponsorship opportunities and things there for the outing. But there's a lot of different things that we do. The outing, we have Kaylee Bishop is a Nashville recording artist. She wrote a song for a female police officer who was killed on duty for the family. So she's got a couple of different law enforcement songs, but she's singing the national anthem for us. We have an honor guard from South Atlanta High School. We have a bagpiper in honor of the law enforcement guys. We have a golf cannon. We have a raffle. We have service dogs. Like, there's all kinds of things that go on. We have a really fun day out playing golf and stuff to raise money for all of the programs and different things that we have going on.
Very cool.
And this year is in honor of all of the law enforcement officers that gave their life over the course of the last year, in support of those that they were sworn to protect.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I really love that. Now, just to kind of wrap things up, what would be some advice or something that you could provide to any veteran law enforcement personnel, or maybe just people in general, if they are going through some sort of PTSD or some problems or some issues? Like, what would be just like one or two things that you would recommend to them?
So I went through it for 35 years, and I talked to my therapist, and I really thought I was wired wrong. Like, I had no idea. I was like, oh man, I'm not missing a leg. I wasn't, whatever. I just didn't think it was me. And they were like, oh dude, no, you got it. And you got it bad. And there is no stigma with that. We go into companies and I talk to companies about it. And I'm just like, look at me. I've been very successful. I've led companies, I've done different things, and I have no problem standing up and talking about it. There is nothing wrong with that. There's a lot of good treatment opportunities out there. There's a lot of good things going on. Buff is my wife. And she's one of the things that we realized is there's not a lot of resources for the spouses. And that's where she picks up. So I'll walk with the veteran, she'll walk with the spouse, and really, help that spouse walk through aspects, because she would look with me, like I said, I'd collapse in, I'd do different things. And she was like, what am I doing wrong? What's going on with this guy? What am I? It had nothing to do with her. It was all me. So don't be me, right? Don't do that. If you need something, reach out. And if it's not me, if I can't help you, I will find somebody that will help you, but definitely leverage some resources and there is no stigma there. There's nothing wrong with asking for some help. But do it sooner rather than later. Don't let it go. Right. That's the biggest thing I'd say.
You just hit on a good point here. I just want to touch on real quick that we always talk about PTSD and the things that, whether it's a veteran or officer or whoever, somebody's gone through something tragic and they go through the PTSD, and it's very tough, and it's, they struggle and have all these issues that are going on and they're searching for help. But what I think a lot of people also don't realize, including myself sometimes, and I'll throw myself in this boat, is that the people that care about you the most, your family members, are going through it as well. And I don't think that's something that people talk about enough. There was a period where I went through, golly, I don't know, a year or two, where I was just kind of in this depressive state, and I just couldn't get myself out of it. And there was a lot of things going on at the time. I won't bore you with all of that on this episode, but it was one of those things where you have people that care about you, but they feel stuck, or maybe they just don't know what to do. Maybe, if that's the right way to put it. And so they try to interject their own opinions and theories and everything else. And sometimes that makes things worse, because now you're yelling at, because now you don't understand what I'm going through. And then it starts causing fights and all that stuff. And so that's in fact, that's really awesome that your wife is now into that as well. And now, now I got somebody that I can, refer people to. So if they wanted to reach out for spousal support, we just make the connection through you. Is that, if anybody's who's listening?
She's right on the website with us. Her contact information is there. Her cell phone, email is right there with me. It's Matt at Outer Circle Foundation, Buffy at Outer Circle Foundation. So we're both right there.
Perfect. Awesome. That is it. Man, this was a really good episode, and you had a lot of good information on here. You guys are doing some awesome things. I can't wait to see what you guys are going to come out in the next, hopefully, few months. I know it might take a little bit longer than that, but this is something that's definitely needed. And I'm so happy to have connected with you on LinkedIn. So check out Matt's information on the website. You'll see it. I've either posted it now at the bottom, or I had before. It's going to be somewhere in the description. You can find him on LinkedIn as well. That's where I connected with him as well, for more information. So Matt, thank you so much for your time and talking about your services and what you do. Again, thank you so much for your service to the country and the citizens, for the city that you served, and you made it to retirement. That's a great accomplishment. Especially in that profession, and you're doing very well after that. So awesome, man. I really appreciate the time we spent together. So
I appreciate it, man. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no worries. Take care, and we will see you on the next one.
Yeah.